What is going on, hey guys? Welcome back to Bananas Epic Gaming. And we are filming another episode of Cage Talk. It is going to be Cage Talk episode 28. And today we're going to be reviewing the CBS series Harper's Island. Please be sure to like and subscribe, and here we go. So Harper's Island came out April 9th, 2009, and it ran for 13 weeks, and it concluded on July 11th, 2009. This was a CBS series, and it starred Elena Cassidy as Abby, Christopher Gorham as Henry, Katie Cassidy, who you may know as Laurel Lance, as Trish, Cameron Richards as Chloe, CJ Thompson as Jimmy, Adam Campbell as Cal, Brandon J. McLaren, who some kids may know as the Red Ranger in Power Rangers SPD, Gina Holden as Shay, and John Wakefield, played by Kellum Keith Rennie. And that's just some of the cast members that were on this series. I'm not going to go through everybody because there's a lot of people, but here's your warning right now, because I'm going to be getting into some of the deaths later on. I'm going to let you know who all dies in this series, but I'm going to give you the overall review, starting right now. So 7 years ago, after a series of murders claimed the lives of her mother and 5 others, Abby Mills, aka Elena Cassidy, returns home to Harper's Island to attend the wedding of her best friend, Henry Dunn, played by Christopher Gorham, who is supposed to marry the woman of his dreams, Trish Wellington, played by Katie Cassidy. But this is no happily ever after, though, as a serial killer begins picking off family members and friends one by one from the wedding. This horror drama series is described as Scream meets the 10 Little Indians. Now this show, you are on the edge of your seat, and every single episode it gives you a hint on how somebody dies in every episode, because the title of the episode is a weapon, or the weapon that the killer uses in the episode. So WAP is episode 1, Crackle is episode 2, Kablam is episode 3, episode 4 is Bang, episode 5 is Thrack, episode 6 is Sploose, episode 7 is Thrack, Splat, and Sizzle, episode 8 is Gargle, episode 9 is Sheep, episode 10 is Snap, episode 11, which is my favorite episode, is Splash. More on that later. Episode 12 is Gasp, and episode 13 is Sigh. Now, I'll get into everybody that dies and the episodes that they die later on, but this TV show, I saw the trailer for it, I'm like, I'm hooked. I came home every day after spring training for football and after summer ball when we were getting ready, and I would watch it. I would sit by the TV and just be mesmerized. This TV show is one of the reasons why I got into acting, because this is a tremendous TV show. I would love to have a season 2. It doesn't have to be with the same characters. It could be with another wedding party or a business trip or something along those lines. They average at least maybe 4 or 5 million viewers. The debut, the first episode, had 10.21 million. The second episode had 7.82. Then third, 7.2, 4.61, 4.6, 3.85, 3.62, 3.56, 3.20, 3.79, 3.53, 3.63, and 4.05. And now they had a web series called Harper's Globe. It was designed to be a complement to Harper's Island. The series was created by EQAL and and it premiered weekly starting on March 18th, 2009, and ran for a total of 16 weeks. It stars Melania Bukowski, who played the character Jenny, aka Lonely Girl 15. And there are some deaths that are in this Harper's Globe. The character Ben, who is in Harper's Island, was seen on Harper's Globe. And Sheriff Mills, Nikki, Maggie, and John Wakefield were all seen on this. Now let's get to some spoilers. I'm going to give you a heads up and I'm going to talk about the deaths. Okay, so here we go. We're going to go from episode 1 to episode 13. Go a quick overview of every single episode and also give you the entire death scenes. Not how they died, but who died in what episode, that episode that we're talking about, and the reveal of the killers. And then I'm going to give you my final thoughts. So, episode 1, wrap. And here we go. Okay, I know I said killers, but we're going to get back to that a little later. So the first death of the series is going to be Cousin Ben. He's on screen for maybe 30 seconds. There is Cousin Ben. I'm not sure the actor that plays him, but his death scene is forgettable. He's only there to stall time for Abby not to be late, because Abby has to come home to Harper's Island. You'll find out why later on in the series, but I think that's why Ben was the first person to die in the way that he died. Now on to the second death of the series. And the second death of the series comes near the end of the episode, and that second death is gonna be, of course, Uncle Marty! Now, Uncle Marty dies near the end of the episode, and Uncle Marty is the last parental figure that Henry and JD have, because earlier on in the timeline, Henry's parents died. I believe Henry's father died like before the killings, not in 2001, but the second set of killings, because there's two sets of killings in this series before the main set of killings happen. I'm not so sure when the mom died, but I know the dad died in the second set, and everybody went to Henry and JD, his brother, their dad's funeral, and Uncle Marty took care of them after that. Uncle Marty, he was, spoiler, he was gonna come in and be the savior for Malcolm, because Malcolm likes to make beer. He was trying to invest, trying to get his career up and going, and he was trying to push his ideas onto Mr. Wellington, and Uncle Marty was going to be the backup in case Mr. Wellington said no. With spoiler alert, he did, but Uncle Marty never got the opportunity to say, hey, here I am, I'm going to help you, Malcolm, and let's go make some money. Now, let's review this episode. Okay, so this whole episode is about everybody getting together and getting on the ferry, going to Harper's Island for Henry Dunn and Trish Wellington's wedding. Trish Wellington is the rich girl who everybody wants to be with, and Henry Dunn is the poor man who his dream girl is Trish, and it's their wedding, and they're all going to their wedding. But Henry has his best man in Sully. He has his good friends Malcolm, Booth, Danny, he has JD there, his Uncle Marty's there, and his best friend is running a little bit late, and his best friend, of course, is Abby. And then we have the British Cal, who's the outsider. He's here because he's dating Chloe. More on them later on. And when Abby comes, they bon voyage to the island. And Uncle Marty, the money that he brings is $250,000 to invest into Malcolm. And he brings a gun. And they get to the island. They are staying at the Candlewick Inn. Abby acquires herself with some old surroundings. We have an old flame of Triss on the island. Hunter Jennings on a mission for Mr. Wellington, aka Thomas Wellington, Triss's father, to break up Triss's marriage with Henry. Uncle Marty confronts Mr. Wellington about these plans and his treatment of Henry, trying to speak up for his nephew. Marty, I'm not going to go how he dies. I'm not going to go how Ben dies. Once the evening winds down, Abby returns to her room to find a newspaper taped to her bathroom mirror with her mother's murder from 2001. And it says liar. And the murder, of course, is from John Wakefield. Bum, bum, bum. So on episode 2, Crackle, while out on the run, Abby is startled by her ex-boyfriend Jimmy and another Harper's Island local, Shane, who are out hunting a deer. Triss also meets up with Hunter again and informs him that her intentions are marrying Henry. Meanwhile, the Reverend Fane is caught up in a rope and murdered, being the first victim of the episode by an unknown assassin. While everybody's on the scavenger hunt at the Candlewick, Abby catches up with another local, Kelly. Kelly is a local whose mother was murdered by John Wakefield in the 2001 murders. Triss confides in Lucy, letting Lucy know that Hunter is back on the island unless he doesn't know what to do. Meanwhile, Sully tries to move in on Chloe while Cal ventures in the wood alone to find them. But Cal is caught up in a rope, and Sully comes upon Cal, declares that he is unable to free him, saying it's a two-man job, and tells Cal that he'll be back, but neglects to do so. Later in the evening, Chloe expresses her concern for Cal, and still missing, Sully realizes that he messed up and leads everybody to his whereabouts to find him, still dangling upside down like a piñata. But he's very much alive. Trying to keep the peace between Shane and JD, Henry extends a invitation to Jimmy and Shane to attend the Beats party that evening. However, the truce is short-lived when Henry arrives back at his room to discover a deer's head in the bathtub. Nikki arrives at Kelly's house to pick her up for the Beats party, but comes to find out that Kelly is no longer alive. She has fallen victim to the Harper's Island serial killer. Shane arrives at the party and is punished by Henry for the deer in the bathtub prank. During their altercation, Lucy's dog scampers away. Lucy, running after the dog, falls into a pit. Her screams for help are being drowned out as the murderer murders Lucy to end the episode. And that is the overall review on episode 2. So, The people that fall victim in episode 2 are Reverend Fane is the first. Reverend Fane was a quick death, which is good because I don't like to see that, and it makes sense why the killer went after him so early, because of what happens in a later episode. And the second person to die is Kelly. Kelly's the second person to die in this episode, and I guess the killer was trying to finish what Wakefield started in 2001 by killing Kelly, because he killed Kelly's mom. And the third person to die in this episode is Lucy. Lucy, I was okay when this character died. I didn't like this character. I found her annoying. And apparently she was hard to work with, so the director was okay with killing her. Now on to episode 3. Episode 3 picks up when Sheriff Mills informs his daughter Abby that Kelly committed suicide, but Abby refuses to believe it. Abby breaks the news to the death of Kelly to JD, and JD does not have a reaction, leaving Abby concerned because she's suspicious because she saw JD with Kelly the night that Kelly died. Now, when Shane hears the news of Kelly's death, he immediately suspects JD, and he sets out to take revenge for Kelly's death. There's also a little thing going on with Malcolm. He's trying to get Mr. Wellington to invest in his beer company because he makes his own beer. Mr. Wellington turns him down and says no. And now Henry discovers that Trish's old boyfriend Hunter Jennings is staying in a nearby hotel. Henry forges Hunter's signature, asking Trish to meet him in a room at the Candlewick. Trish comes up to the door, but she's hesitant and she leaves. Inside the room, Henry smiles, showing him that Trish chose him over Hunter. Knowing that there is bad blood between JD and Shane, Abby goes to Shane's house to find JD being held captive in his barn. Abby tries to persuade the crazed Shane that Kelly did not die by the hands of JD, and she did not commit suicide, but she was in fact murdered by the hands of John Wakefield. Abby's dad, the sheriff, comes upon them, saves Abby and JD, and arrests Shane. Later in the evening at dinner, Hunter sees Trish and Henry and knows that he lost Trish to Henry. Hunter then blackmails Mr. Wellington and promises not to tell Trish of their deal and not to break up the engagement, but he would leave Harper's Island if Mr. Wellington pays him $50,000. Mr. Wellington agrees, and Hunter Jennings sets off to leave Harper's Island. Hunter Jennings then notices a bag with cash. The cash is $250,000. The cash belonged to Uncle Marty, because Uncle Marty was going to invest in Malcolm's beer company and save the day. But we don't find that out until a little later, so spoiler. As he sails away from Harper's Island, something goes wrong with the boat. Hunter is then killed by a shotgun on the boat that was rigged. And it says the Candlewick Inn, leading us to believe that somebody from the Candlewick killed Hunter. Maybe it was one of Henry's friends. Maybe they saw Hunter. Maybe Henry did it. Or maybe John Wakefield is setting up a red herring from the Candlewick Inn. But Hunter Jennings, the other man, is dead. Now on to the next episode. Episode 4 is known as Bank, and it is also known as the Bachelorette and Bachelor Party episode. So here we go. In episode 4, driving into town, Jimmy and Abby begin to reminisce and rekindle their relationship. Once in town, Abby visits a local newspaper, Harper's Globe, and Harper's Globe have a couple people that die on their website. It's really hard to find now. I've looked everywhere and I can't find it. but they add to the deaths a little. Like the owner of Harper's Globe, and I believe another one or two people die in that time frame. Because it starts from episode 1 to episode 13 from Harper's Globe. But Abby goes to Harper's Globe to pick up a picture of Trish and Henry as kids for her wedding gift that she's making. Abby also is unsettled by the discovery of old newspaper clippings of the Wakefield murders. Robin Matthews tells her that someone was inquired by them, but the person never came to pick them up. The day of the bachelor party and bachelorette party arrives. While the guys are going out fishing, Henry and his groomsmen, they come across Hunter's boat. They discovered his body and the bag of money with a gun. They debate whether they should report it or not, but Malcolm sinks the ship and takes the money and gun. While the others follow suit, they wanted to turn it in because they think it's a drug deal gone bad. When they return to the counter again, the men agreed to conceal the $250,000 and deal with it after Henry and Trish's wedding. While two armed men come by, in the end, the groomsmen decide to hide the money immediately, thinking that they're there for the money for the drug deal, or the Uncle Marty's money. They think it's drug deal money, but they later decide to hide the money in the woods and go get the money after the wedding. They draw straws, and Booth, one of the groomsmen, heads into the woods to bury the money. Malcolm follows suit to make sure Booth doesn't get attacked or get mugged for the money. And spoiler alert, Booth accidentally shoots himself in the leg and bleeds out. Malcolm, desperate attempts at care, he buries Booth's body and he takes the money and puts it back in his room. After the bachelor party, the friends realize that the two suited men are actually security guards for the stripper that they hired. Malcolm arrives back at the bachelor party, and people ask where's Booth, and he says, I don't know, but they're happy that Malcolm's there. Trish's afternoon, however, is not going so well because her tea set that belonged to her mother got ruined when she discovered that it's been vandalized. At the bachelorette party, a tarot card reader warns Abby that she must leave the island or else. Freaked out with this encounter, Abby goes to Jimmy's house and stays the night. Upset over the loss of her mother's china that she was using for the tea party, for her bachelorette party, Trish falls into the hotel swimming pool and becomes trapped when the pool cover closes over her. Trish loses consciousness and begins to drown, but her brother-in-law Richard rescues her and saves the day to end the episode. Episode 5 is called Thwack. It's the day before the wedding. Trish is stressing out over all the details that needs to be done before the wedding. Henry tells Trish to take the morning off to spend time with her father, and he'll handle all the final preparations for the wedding. Henry is overcome and overwhelmed with all the wedding details, and he finds a decaying animal carcass on the altar in the church. Henry, thinking JD's responsible, confronts him and saying he never wants to see him again. JD foreshadows that he has one more last surprise for Henry. Meanwhile, Sheriff Mills and his deputy investigates the disappearance of the Reverend Fand, at his home. They found unopened mail and unheard voice messages that lead them to find his dismembered body from the water by a fishing line. So they found the Reverend's body. Now Abby visits her father's house and discovers newspaper clippings and articles on John Wakefield. Abby looks him over, and has reasons to think that her dad thinks that John Wakefield is still alive. While on a bike ride in the woods, Tris and her father trip a swinging log booby trap that knocks them off their bikes, and they start walking back towards the canal again. Toughing it out their injuries, they come upon a figure in the woods and ask him for help. In response, the figure sends his German Shepherd to attack them. They evade and kill the dog in the struggle. Then they escape and make their way back to the canal again. Now the wedding reversals begin at the altar. Henry stands with Tris and Mr. Wellington at the altar, and Abby is asked to turn off the lights. And get ready, because it's going to be the big death that turns the entire series upside down right now. Abby goes to turn off the lights, and the headspade comes down and thracks Mr. Wellington in the face, killing him. The headspade from the chandelier above, piercing Mr. Wellington's skull. So Mr. Wellington is dead, and that's the end of the episode. Now on to the next episode. This episode is titled Sploosh, and it is episode 6. So the sheriff convinces his investigation into the murder of Mr. Wellington, and soon suspects that somebody from the wedding party specifically wanted him dead. Henry tells Abby about JD's promise about one more last surprise, but JD denies having anything to do with the murder and insists that John Wakefield is alive. JD leads Abby into the woods to reveal the body of Uncle Marty tied up in a tree. They find and break the news to Henry about the murder of Uncle Marty and their belief that John Wakefield is involved with the recent deaths. Abby takes Henry to her father to show the research on Wakefield. Together the three of them confront the sheriff, who continues to reassure that Wakefield is dead. JD, not believing them, decides to dig up Wakefield's grave, but the sheriff locks him in a pantry. As the sheriff questions the rest of the wedding party, Abby and Henry dig up Wakefield's grave, and they discovered a skeleton in the coffin. After the sheriff arrives and sees back at the Wakefield Inn, Madison letting JD out of the pantry, JD runs to the woods and enters the cabin of a mysterious, scattered character. The sheriff starts to suspect that Richard Allen, Shay's husband, Shay is Trish's sister, and Madison's father. Madison is the little girl for the murders. The lawman asks Richard about their relationship. Richard then opens up about the affair with Thomas Wellington's wife, Catherine Wellington, Trish's stepmother, and admits that he hated Wellington and the affair was a way of humiliating his father-in-law. Afterwards, not knowing that he is a real prime suspect in murder, Richard calls his lawyer just in case. While on the phone, Richard is harpooned through the chest and pulled off screen, and we fade to black, ending the episode. Now this next episode is tricky. It is called Thrack, Splat, and Sizzle. These three people coming up are from Harper's Globe, and I would place their deaths right here, and that is, the first person is Spakey. He's the person that owns and runs Harper's Globe. The next person is Brent. He, I believe, was the main love interest in Harper's Globe, and the Cheshire Cat person. I forgot his name, but those are the three people from Harper's Globe that I found out that died. I didn't watch Harper's Globe, the YouTube series, but those three are the ones that are canon that I know that are dead in this timeline. Now on to the episode. The Harper's Globe is like 5, 10, 15 minutes apiece, and there's 16 of them, but they're hard to find. But those are the three that I know. So let's get to the episode. Episode 7, Thrack, Splat, and Sizzle. After JD and Henry examine clues in the sheriff's attic, the guests at the hotel begin to form a theory about the slayings. The atmosphere of the Candlewick Inn darkens as the sheriff conducts searches in everybody's room in the wake of Wellington's death, and finds Uncle Marty's phone in JD's bag, claims him to be the killer, and arrests him. In a series of flashbacks to 7 years ago of the first Wakefield murders, Abby goes to her father's house to collect some things. Once she started by a mysterious and scared character who she recognizes as Cole Harkin, who tells her that her father can't be trusted and tells her to ask her father why Wakefield came to the islands all those years ago. Once he does, Sheriff Mills explains that Abby's mother used to date Wakefield until he got violent and she ran away to the island to get away from him. That is how they met. Wakefield tracked her down, but the sheriff ordered his deputies to teach Wakefield a lesson. They beat him up, but Wakefield fought back, leaving one of his deputies, Cole Harkin, badly burned from the Wakefield assault. He has him arrested for attempted murder of a police officer. Wakefield is let out of prison for good behavior and comes back for revenge, and that is how the first murders started. Now on to the death of the episode. And the death of the episode is Malcolm, the hustler. Malcolm, who is stressing over the possibility of the police finding the big bag of cash. He evades and Sully and Danny until they come and snoop again, looking for Muffin, the blow-up doll. You have to watch to understand why they have a blow-up doll. And found out that Malcolm has the cash and that Booth died. Malcolm goes to the basement of the Candlewick to burn the money in the garbage incinerator. As he's watching the money burn, Malcolm is savagely murdered, and the killer throws Malcolm's body parts into the flames. Later, worrying about his father's disappearance, Madison receives a mysterious note. She goes to a meeting in the Candlewick, specified in the letter, and the door slams shut as Madison is trapped inside. And that is the end of the episode. Now on to the next episode. Now we are on episode 8, and episode 8 is called Gargle. The wedding party is preparing to leave Harper's Island, and at the police station, Sheriff Mills questions JD about Cole Harkin. JD says that Cole is staying in a cabin in the woods. Sheriff Mills heads off to see Cole. Meanwhile, Shay announces to everybody, the many people, that Madison is missing and she needs help finding her. Back at the police station, Shane and JD are fighting in the shells where they're locked up when Deputy Garrett attempts to break up the fight. Suddenly, off screen, there is 2 gunshots to the back of Deputy Garrett, leaving him dead by an unknown assailant. So with Deputy Garrett dead, Shane is in shock, and JD grabs the keys to get himself out of jail. He manages to escape, but throws the keys away from Shane, leaving Shane locked in the cell. While looking for Madison, the wedding party finds Malcolm's skull in the incinerator, and they find Richard Allen's body. Abby gets a phone call from Madison saying if anybody leaves the island, Madison will die. At that point, the power to the whole island and the cell phone reception goes out. In the woods, Sheriff Mills tries to find Cole Harkin, but instead badly wounds his leg from a booby trap set up by Cole. Cole helps him to the cabin and then talks to him about the journal that he found. At the Candlewick Inn, Maggie gives bullets, and shotguns to everybody. Jimmy arrives to tell everybody that the boat is left without them. Abby and Jimmy head over to the police station to shortwave a radio, but find it broken. Instead, they find Shane inside the shell, and he tells them that Sheriff Mills went to the woods. Back in the cabin, Sheriff Mills and Cole Harkin are continuing the talk. Cole Harkin, like I said, told Sheriff Mills that he has Wakefield's journal. Cole Harkin goes out to find help because Sheriff Mills will not make it through the night. But moments later, arrows fly out, pinning Cole to the cabin, killing him. He drops the journal and the lantern, starting a fire. Abby and Jimmy rescue Sheriff Mills and the journal from the fire, and they are off to the dock to try and help him find Madison. Henry and Danny, during all this, manage to get the generator going, and they discover that half the wedding party is missing. Sully, Beth, and Cal and Chloe try to escape the island after they were told that if anybody leaves, Madison would die. Sheriff Mills is with Abby and Jimmy trying to get off the island, and the others are trying to find JD. Abby finds JD. She finds JD with his stomach cut open and him gargling. And his last words were, "It's all about you, Abby. The killings are all about you." Behind Abby is Henry Dunn, covered in blood, crying at the death of his brother. And that is the end of the episode. Now on to the next episode. After reading the Wakefield journal, Abby finds out that she could be John Wakefield's daughter. After overhearing this information, Shane tells everybody in the wedding party that are saying that a candle wick in that are left, that he believes that Abby is the murderer, causing the party to turn on her and each other. The tensions cause Abby to realize that she is the center of the killings. After denying Abby a place inside the inn, Shane is attacked by Henry, who is only stopped when the group pulls him off. Meanwhile, Cal and Chloe are attending to Sheriff Mills' leg injury. Chloe gets turned on when Cal saves his life, and they end up having intercourse and sleeping together in a separate room. Cal wakes up to discover that the sheriff is missing. Moments after the fight, Sully realizes that Beth is missing. He and Danny search for her, and in searching for her, they found a trail of blood leading to a tunnel system. After finding the trail of blood, Danny finds Beth inside of a tunnel system, cut in half. Abby, who's also looking for Beth, finds Madison in a separate safe room after she gets lost in another tunnel. Abby and Madison climb up a ladder to try and get out of the tunnels, to be found by Trish, who is driving with Shay looking for Madison. And now Abby and Madison are found. They are all together, and everybody's getting ready to leave the island. When Shane finds Catherine dead after being stabbed through the back with garden clippers. To end the episode, we see Mrs. Wellington bleeding to death. We don't fade to black before Madison tells Abby that this was a game set up by the sheriff, leading Abby to believe that she is Wakefield's daughter. Madison leads the group to believe that the sheriff was the one who kidnapped her, causing them to suspect that he is in fact the murderer of the group. The group then decides to leave the island on Jimmy's boat, but after seeing Officer Tara, who is in the picture above, or showing, and Officer Riggins, who I can't find a picture of. They are the cops that are coming in the beginning. Shane calls for everybody to get off the dock. Moments later, the dock explodes along with the boats. The group take refuge in the cannery, where Nikki shows up in fear. Later, Maggie decides to leave the group and appears to have gone home. But later on, Maggie is thrown off the roof with a noose around her neck. Maggie is dead by hung. Her neck snapped. The episode titled is Snap, so the group decides to make a plan to make a diversion for Cal and Sully to get to Nikki's car so they can go to Sully's sailboat that Sully rented in an earlier episode. But without consequences, hours later, the sheriff's truck delivers the gang an unconscious Jimmy. This promotes Abby to go back to the Kennewick Inn because the killer put Abby's room key inside of Jimmy's pocket. Where she finds her father. She blames him for the murders, but he tells her that it has been John Wakefield all this time. After revealing his secrets and twists, Abby witnesses her father being pulled off screen from a noose tied to the truck, killing Sheriff Mills. And the last thing we see is John Wakefield coming out of the shadows, who confronts her, and we fade to black. Now on to the next episode. Now this upcoming episode is personally my favorite episode. It is called Splash. And it is revealed that John Wakefield has been friends with Madison since the day everyone arrived on the island. Well, at the cannery, Madison informs everyone that, Mommy, he's here. And John Wakefield breaks into the bar. And sadly, this is where we say goodbye to Nikki, because as Nikki goes to grab a gun, she's too slow and Wakefield kills her. Shane distracts John Wakefield for the others to get away, and Shane is stabbed in the stomach. As John Wakefield steps into the bathroom to come face to face with Trish, Shane says hey, and he's killed off screen, and the rest of them get away. Now we are on 2 people that have died within the first 15 minutes. But Danny, Abby, and Henry make their way back to the cannery to find Shane and Nikki dead, and the girl who's missing. Trish, Shay, Chloe, and Madison all end up at Sheriff Merrill's house, hiding in the attic. After hearing church bells off in the distance, Trish and Chloe head to the church to see who's ringing the bells. They soon meet up and realize that Jimmy is missing, and Deputy Lewis, the last deputy left in the island. Deputy Lewis has been killed off screen. It looked like that his throat was slit from the angle that it shows us. Moments later, Sully and Cal emerge into the church while Wakefield somehow sneaks in quietly and grabs Chloe. Moments later, Jimmy enters the church. After hearing the bells, the groups decide to split up and block off the exits in the tunnels that they found out about earlier in the episode that Wakefield has been using to get in and around the island. Danny and Sully encounter Wakefield and decide moments later to help their friends. In the woods, Cal finds and rescues Chloe while Abby and Henry are chasing John Wakefield. Moments after rescuing Chloe, Cal proposes to her and Chloe says yes. As they embrace in a kiss, John Wakefield emerges and Cal yells to Chloe, run. He shoots his last shot in his gun and misses. And they run onto the bridge. Cal helps Chloe get over the edge. John Wakefield is approaching. Cal doesn't have enough time to make it over. He tells Chloe that he loves her and tries to fight off John Wakefield, but John Wakefield ends up killing Cal and throwing him off the bridge when the song Letters from the Sky plays in the background. And this is the best death scene in the entire series. If you ask me, Cal and Chloe had the best death scene. I'll tell you, and this is why right here. Knowing that he doesn't stand a chance and Cal sacrificed his life so she can get away, Chloe jumps off, not before saying, you can't have me, to be with Cal in the afterlife. As Letter from the Skies plays in the background, like I said, that caps off the best death scene in the whole series. Shay finds out that John Wakefield has an accomplice and she thinks it's Jimmy. And we end the episode with Jimmy taking the gun away from Trish, saying you shouldn't sleep with a loaded gun, as they are blocking off the tunnel exit that they found Madison in. And that's the end of the episode. Now on to the next episode. This episode is called Gasp, and after witnessing the deaths of Cal and Chloe, Abby and Henry are off to find Wakefield. Danny acts as bait to lure Wakefield out. But when it comes to killing him, Abby can't do it. Instead, she knocks him out and they drag him to the police station where they lock him up. Henry goes to find Trish and Jimmy, but they have left the car. While at the station, Shay tells the group that Sheriff Mills suspected Jimmy of being a Wakefield copycat in deaths that happened before this entire series, causing a group to analyze Jimmy's behavior and brushes off with death. Jimmy comes to the station, seemingly upset that Trish has fallen off a cliff and has struck in her head. Wakefield reveals to Abby that she is the reason behind the killings, but that he really loved her mother, and reveals that Abby's mother gave birth to Wakefield's son and put him up for adoption, but Wakefield found him. Meanwhile, Jimmy, Henry, and Abby and Sully go off to rescue Trish, who they find unharmed. Trish found a radio, and with the help of Sully and Jimmy, they are able to make contact with the Coast Guard, who said they are sending help. They have 45 minutes. Back at the station, Shay and Madison and Danny are playing a game when Wakefield somehow escapes and goes to kill Danny, who stayed behind to allow Shay and Madison time to escape. While wandering through the woods, Jimmy and Abby come upon Madison and Shay. They send Madison and Shay to safety and to find Trish and Henry. As they go to find Trish and Henry, they arrive at the end to find Wakefield has already been there, and Trish and Henry are missing. Trish, who is on the run from Wakefield, stumbles upon Henry. Her happiness turns to horror as Henry reveals that he is the accomplice. He stabs Trish in the side after they struggle, killing his fiancée. The audience is also informed that he is John Wakefield's biological son, thus ending the episode with a "Hey Dad" as we fade to black. The last episode is called Sigh. We start off with a flashback of Henry and Abby as kids, shown to be best friends. Henry's parents come to pick him up, and through glances the audience is told that Abby's mother and Henry's adopted mother know what happened. Henry and Abby share a secret before Henry goes back to home to tell Monica. Henry and Wakefield, his biological father, are discussing their overall plan. When they hear Abby approaching, they leave Trish's body in the woods. Madison and Shay make it to the Butt House, where Sully learns that Wakefield escaped. Abby and Jimmy find Trish's body and decide to leave her there to find Henry. Meanwhile, Sully sends Shay and Madison off towards Seattle on a small boat, while Henry takes Sully to the woods to find Trish. There, Henry tells Sully everything, but he doesn't believe him at first. Eventually, he tries to shoot Henry, but Henry removed the bullets at the boathouse. Henry then goes in, and Henry and his father both kill Sully, as Henry says, "You never should have dogged Trish," leading the audience to believe that Henry actually cared for Trish, despite this whole plan to get Abby to the island. Henry, Jimmy, and Abby make their way to the church after Abby and Jimmy come across Henry, who is alone. He doesn't believe them when they tell him that Trish is dead. There, Abby, Henry, and Jimmy come across Wakefield. Wakefield attacks Jimmy, who yells for Abby to run. When she leaves the church, Wakefield yells at Henry that Abby is escaping. Jimmy finally connects the dots and fights off Wakefield while Henry runs after Abby. Henry catches up to Abby, but instead of killing her, he actually kills his dad, John Whitefield, who is surprised and heartbroken that Henry chose Abby over him. Abby, piecing everything together, tries to run from Henry, but she is knocked unconscious. The scene then shifts to Shay and Madison, who are informed that they are the only survivors other than a handful of locals. This scene then shifts again to Abby, who wakes up downstairs. She finds Henry and he explains that they are meant to be together and no one knows that they're half siblings, which makes everything okay. Attempting to escape, she finds Jimmy, who is tied up. Henry has him sign a full confession in exchange that he keeps her safe. Henry gets jealous when Abby admits she loves Jimmy and he slaps her while on the floor. Abby stabs Henry in the foot, having slipped Jimmy a tool to get himself unlocked. Abby leads Henry on a chase where she tells him that she doesn't want him or love him. Distraught, he doesn't notice Jimmy coming up from behind him, and together Henry and Jimmy go off a cliff. While checking on Jimmy, Abby stabs Henry. And Henry's last words were to her, "Abby, I love you." Abby and Jimmy make it off the island safely. And we are shown a video montage of mostly everybody that died. All the main characters. Their hopes for Henry and Trish's wedding. Thus ending Harper's Island, and the only known survivors from this main cast are Abby Mills, Jimmy, and Shay and Madison Allen. Those four survived the entire series of Harper's Island, and now my thoughts on the series. As the video shows you Abby, Jimmy, and Shay, my thoughts on this series was it was really good. I really enjoyed it. It came out when I was in high school, and I would rush home every day and watch it and rewatch the episodes as they come out. I think it came out on Tuesdays. Because Wednesdays was my short days of school. It's been a really long time. I don't know the exact day it came out, but you get my point. This is a show worth watching. It's $10 on Apple TV. If you want to watch a good horror show, you want to be spooked out, a murder mystery, watch it. This is like Scream meets the 10 Little Indians. Because you don't know who the killer is. You don't know who's going to die. You don't know when they're going to die or how they're going to die. I told you how some people die, but not all the deaths. This has the highest death count, I believe, on a TV show that I've watched other than The Walking Dead, and it is worth it. So give it a watch. And I want to thank you guys for watching this video. Please be sure to like and subscribe. And we are on our road to 1,000 subscribers. And I'll see you guys on the next one. Peace. And I'm going to give out some little awards. Best death goes to Cal and Chloe. Worst death goes to Cousin Ben, because it was done mostly off screen. Best actress goes to Katie Cassidy. I'm pretty sure she got her job at Arrow because of this. Be on the lookout for the next Bananas Epic Gaming presents CageTalk, because we are going to be ranking all the seasons of the challenge. That is the 30th CageTalk. I know this is episode 28, but episode 29 was already filmed. And I'll see you guys at the next one. Peace. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Thank you guys very much. I had to add something else. Peace.